Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a great beginning to your week. 1 second here. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a great beginning to your week. And wanted to study a little Torah this morning, give you a little few words of inspiration, hopefully. So the time between Passover and Shavuot is a very, very special time. Although we've been in quarantine now for 5 weeks, but Passover to Shavuot is 7 exact weeks. The Torah was given to us on the 7th of Sivan, 7 weeks, 49 days to the date after we left Egypt. And there are 2 very special things we do during the time of the Omer, we call it, between Passover and Shavuot. One is we count the Omer. We count every day the Sefirah, from the 2nd day of Passover till Shavuot. Very beautiful. There's a lot of reasoning for it. And one day we'll do a talk just on Sefirah, explaining why we count and how we could count and prepare ourselves for the giving of the Torah. But there's also 6 Shabbases. Between Passover, from after Passover till Shavuot, there's always 6 Shabbatot. And something very special we do is every Shabbat we read one chapter of Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers. There's 60 tractates of the Mishnah that Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, the great leader of the Jewish people, combined, and one of them is called Ethics of Our Fathers. All 59 of them deal with dry law, how to keep Shabbat, how to keep Passover, how to keep Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, etc. One deals beyond the letter of the law and to the aspirations of being beyond a righteous person, a pious person. So this week we read the first chapter, this past Shabbos, and I wanted to study one Mishnah with you, and then we'll do it every week going forward. Why do we study the 6 chapters of Pirkei Avot between Passover and Shavuot? There's 2 reasons. One is because on Shavuot, the Jews are ready to get the Torah. How do you prepare? What better way than to reflect of how to be a better human being, going beyond the letter of the law, being kinder, pushing yourself beyond what naturally you would be able to do and reaching for something higher. The second reason the rabbis tell us is that during the summer month, the days are longer, the weather's nicer, and sometimes we indulge more in our materialistic and physical needs and sometimes forget about the spiritual. And Pirkei Avot is there to remind us as we study it to focus on our spiritual and to remember what our reason we live in this world and our goals are in this world. So all the Mishnahs are quotes from different sages. The Mishnah I'm going to read to you is a quote from the famous sage Hillel. Hillel was one of the greatest sages to live in the history of the Jewish people. You've probably heard of him, you've studied him, he's quoted all over. Hillel lived 100 years, about 100 years before the destruction of the Second Temple. Him and his contemporary Hillel and Shammai are very famous and always quoted in the Mishnah. The rabbis tell us that Hillel was a tremendously humble man and also a very knowledgeable man. The rabbis say when the Torah was forgotten the first time, Ezra the scribe came from Babylon to Israel and taught the Jews the Torah again. And when it was forgotten for the second time, Hillel, who was born in Babylon, came to Israel and taught the Jewish people the Torah again and became the leader of the Jewish people. But Hillel says a lot of things. But one thing he says that I think is so important, and especially for this time, he says, Im ein ani li mi li. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? And the simple meaning the rabbis give in the Hasidic interpretation is basically, Im ein ani li mi li. If I will not act upon for myself to become a better person, if I will not try to perfect myself and rise to the occasion, then who will? There are certain things we can never rely on someone else. It's so easy when there's a crisis to rely on a friend, to rely on a parent, to rely on a spouse, to rely on the government to send me a check, to rely on the government to solve something. But what Hillel is really telling us is, Im ein ani li mi li. Ultimately, the buck stops here. There's only one person that's responsible for who I will be. There's only one person that could really take me to the heights that I could grow with the powers and the gifts that Hashem has given me, and that's myself. So the first thing Hillel tells us is, who's going to look after you being the best person you could be, if not yourself? Uchshani la'atzmi, mani. But if I only think about myself, what am I worth? You see, there's that counter. From one side, you got to rely only on yourself to become a better person. And every single human being and every single Jew has to work on perfecting himself, on becoming better, on becoming kinder, on using the God-given talents they have to reach to a greater space. The Rebbe once said, if you are able to cut diamonds and you're a wood chopper and said, you're wasting your talent. And the same is with everything. If God gave you a talent, it's up to us to utilize that to the best. But at the same point, if all you do is self-perfection, if all you do is look in at yourself and how I could become better and how I could be better, but you don't think about the person next to you, you don't think about your community, you don't think about becoming a leader and rising to the occasion, Mani, what is that worth? What is all your becoming better worth if it's only for yourself? It has to be that everything you learn, everything you study, the better you become, you share it with someone else and you impact someone else. But then he says the last thing, and probably the most powerful, one of the most powerful quotes in the entire Mishnah. And he says, V'im lo achshav ematai. Hillel says, you got to seize the moment. If not now, then when? And there's two meanings to this. The first thing is, I always say as a rabbi, and I tell someone, you want to come study Torah? And he says, listen, Rabbi. He says, listen, Rabbi, I'm a young teenager. I have to study. I have to get my SATs. I have to make sure that I graduate college and graduate high school and get into the best college. When I finish and I'm in college already, then I'll do it. And then you meet them in college and they say, listen, Rabbi, I'm in college now. I'm learning a degree. I need to make sure I can get a job when I get out. And then when they get out of college, you say, no, what about learning Torah now? What about engaging your spiritual side now? They say, listen, now I need to find a job. And then they find a job and you say, no, you found your job. You're making a good living. You're working for a top bank. You're a big doctor. He says, now I need to find a wife. And finally they find the wife and you say, no, so let's make time to study. They say, listen, I just have to get to know my wife. And then they have little children and they say, what do you want from me now? I got to take care of my children. I got to play with them and then I got to teach them. And by the time they're ready to retire, you say, what about studying Torah now? And they say, Rabbi, it's too late. I'm already old. I'm going to go study. I'm going to go find my spiritual side. I'm retired already. So Hillel says, first of all, im lo achshav ematai. You got to grab every opportunity, every moment to study, to become a better human being. But then there's something else. Im lo achshav ematai. Sometimes, and it could be once in a lifetime, there's a moment that comes that if you don't seize it, it'll never come again. And Hillel's imploring you, don't waste those moments. Seize the moment. Grab the opportunity that God gives you. Im lo achshav ematai. And I think that that's why I chose this Mishnah, because there is no better time to say this Mishnah than now. There is no better time to think about that choice of Hillel's words in how he tries to inspire us. Because I saw there was this meme going around saying, listen, if quarantine finishes and you haven't learned a new trade, or you haven't read a new book, or you haven't come up with a new idea, or you haven't accomplished something you've always been saying for, don't ever say you didn't have the time. Think about it. We've been in quarantine for a month. I would say we'll probably be there another month. If we don't take this moment that God gave us, become closer to our family, become closer to our spouse, study something, open a book, study something you always wanted to, learn a new trade, get better at something, but to come out of this after 2 months and say I'm the same person who went into quarantine now after I went out of quarantine? What does that say about who we are? So I think, well, I want to leave you with, of course, there's the three things that Hillel says. A, we have to rely on ourselves to become better people, not on someone else. And we have to use our talent and our strength to become a better human being. B, don't only focus on yourself. Impart that to someone else and impact someone else. And C, if not now, then when, seize the moment. And I would recommend this book that I've been using, the cheat book that I use always to study on Pirkei Avot, is given out by Kahal Society. It's called Pirkei Avot, Epics of Our Fathers, with commentary and Hasidic masters and a lot of thought from the Rebbe. It's one of the most beautiful books you could get. And it's available on Kahat Online. I'm giving you my cheat book, so now every time I'll say something, you'll say, oh, I already read it in the book, but it's okay, because we all have to study. I would recommend you go on to Kahat Online now, and I will put the link in the comments, and order this Ethics of Our Fathers. And maybe over the next 6 weeks, as we prepare for the giving of the Torah again, as we get ready to become better human beings, you study one chapter a week. It'll be so easy to use this book, and it'll inspire you to become a better person, to go beyond the letter of the law, to reach the depth and the gifts that God has given you. Tomorrow we'll talk about this week's Parsha, about leprosy, and we'll also talk about Sfirat HaOmer and many other things. Have a great day, a good start to your week. It's nice, learn a Mishnah.